Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Convention of States, Indiana Live. Let me ask you a question. Do you think we still have a big problem with our federal government in Washington, D.C.? Well, if you do, stay tuned because we at Convention of States have a solution as big as the problem. Well, good evening, everyone. My name's Dale Parrish. I am the state director for Convention of States here in Indiana, and I want to welcome you to our broadcast this evening. Our broadcast, as normal, we have about 3 different segments that we address during our broadcast. The first segment will be a discussion segment, and our topic this evening is going to be the national grassroots development, and we have as our guest this evening Miss Diane Gomez, and Diane was previously the state director for here in Indiana, but now Diane is with our national group. Her actual title is development officer, so she is talking to donors about supporting our movement, as well as the upcoming summit, which she'll get into tonight in our discussion. So should be a very, very interesting discussion tonight. Second segment, we'll get into some general information about our state and some resources that we have, as well as I'll share some numbers with you as to how we're growing. And then the third segment is going to be what I call the basics of Convention of States. Now, this is oriented toward those of you that maybe don't know about our movement, just learning, or been with us a little while and need to continue learning more and more. In the basics, there are 3 tenets that we all abide by in the movement. So that's what I call the basics. And in our last segment, then we will address the basics of Convention of States. Now, I want to issue a warning to you. In the event that your screen would go blank or freeze up, just know that we've encountered a technical problem, and this has happened before, and unfortunately will probably happen again. But if that does occur, please don't wait for us to come back on, because we will it just takes too long for us to get everything up and running again. So if that occurs, just put us on your calendar to join us next Monday evening at 7 o'clock. And no need for you to wait for us to bring the broadcast back up. All right, well, let's get in now to our first segment. As I mentioned, we're going to be talking to Diane Gomez. Let's bring Diane into the broadcast, and hi, Diane.
Oh, hi, Dale. How are you doing?
Just fine, just fine. Diane, I think I told everybody that your current title is development officer for our national group, and you want to just say a few words about what you do as development officer?
Sure. I'm responsible for helping to fund the movement and explaining to donors what Convention of States is, and it's such a natural extension of what I used to do as a volunteer and state director, because it's just sharing about Convention of States and what it will do.
Okay. Well, do we have a lot of supporters? I guess hopefully we do.
We do. We have a lot of supporters, just like the grassroots, who are frustrated with Washington and realize that neither party has the answer, and it's time for something new.
Okay, great. Well, let's get talking then about. We were going to. I told everybody you were going to be talking about the grassroots, and as you and I had discussed in planning this evening, that you've kind of been with the movement from the beginning, or just about the beginning. Am I correct?
Yes, I signed up in 2014, very soon after the organization had formed, and we didn't have many grassroots then.
Okay, so you've kind of seen how from a well, from a national viewpoint, how the grassroots is developed. Am I correct?
Yes, and when we first started out as an organization, I wasn't on national staff then, but they have shared
Right.
with me that when they first were trying to organize, they wanted to get a database of grassroots patriot type people, and they could only get ones that were organized at congressional state levels, and because that's where all the power is. But that is of no use to this movement because we need to lobby our state legislators to get this movement, because we are going to bypass our congressional representatives and senators.
Okay.
So we had to build this from scratch. And we have organized in a way that has never been organized before, and that is at the state legislative level. And I wasn't sure how many state legislative districts there were, so I looked it up, and there are actually 4,826 state legislative districts in the nation. And yeah, and Convention of States has supporters in every single one of those. We have petition signers.
So in the beginning, it was really more than having the convention. It was getting the grassroots organized, right, from the
Yeah,
state
that's
level
right.
down.
And we are so much more than the convention. The convention is a major goal, but we are educating Americans to be involved in self-governance. We have over 4 million supporters now in all of those districts, and we are educating them about founding principles. They are lobbying their legislators to pass the Convention of States resolution. We've even had some COS volunteers run for office. That has happened here in Indiana and other states. Some of our viewers out there may have Senator Mike Gaskell as their senator, and he was a COS volunteer. So people are becoming empowered to become involved in state government. We in Indiana, something that we are working on as a state team is working on now that we've passed the resolution, we're working on the Indiana Delegate Limitation Act. So that's just another act of self-governance. And then we had something really exciting happen in South Carolina. The team did something so wonderful. South Carolina has not passed the COS resolution, and an obstacle for them has been that the Republican Party has not had it in their plank in one of the things that they want to happen. So every year this came up. So in a matter of a couple of weeks, the South Carolina team, who are now well connected all over the state, decided that they were going to take over the Republican Party. So they, at the state level, they became precinct captains, it's called. And if you're not familiar with that, that's each precinct has a captain, and that's the lowest level office holder in each party. And the Republican Party has this, and the Democrat Party has this. So a bunch of them became precinct captains. And at the Republican convention, when it came time to vote for Convention of States, it won by an overwhelming majority. And from my understanding, is the Convention of States group went off to celebrate. I don't know if it was lunch or dinner, but some people were unhappy that it passed, and so they called another meeting, but they couldn't get a quorum because all the Convention of States people were off having lunch. So now they've overcome that obstacle. So with that kind of, that's just some good self-governance in action.
That is self-governance. That is very, very important. That's a constitutional concept that we try here in Indiana to stress as much as possible. To where all of our volunteers, supporters, we really do stress the importance of getting involved and being involved in your local governance of your local area. And and as you mentioned, that can then translate into possibly running for office in the state, and you just cited a good example of that. So I know education has always been an important part of the grassroots development and movement, and educating people about Article 5. Do you that's just a common thing throughout our grassroots development. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yes. And it's something that Americans don't know, that they have that power at their fingertips. So most people that I have, I've been at this quite a few years. They just are stunned to know that, oh, we have the power to do this, and we, the people, have the power to propose amendments at the state level. And it is time that we did it. And then, of course, some fear tactics have taken place over the years, and so we work on dispelling those too. But educating Americans about our constitutional principles is a very important thing that we do as an organization. And we're going to continue that, actually. We have a big event coming up. I mentioned that we have 4 million supporters in all the legislative districts, and we are holding a leadership summit. And we're going to bring about 400 of our top state leaders from all over the country to Williamsburg, Virginia, for a leadership summit to share best practices. We're going to have workshops about self-governance, maximizing citizen engagement, how COS can and will slam the door on socialism, building relationships with state legislators. So a lot of education there. We have got a great lineup of speakers, and Mark Levin is going to be delivering the keynote. And I mean, I know I'm a nerd, but I am like, this is going to be like Christmas morning for me. I can't wait.
You will be there and working the summit?
Yes, yes.
I know you've the last when we did the simulated convention of states a few years ago, I know you were involved in working that as well, weren't you?
Yes, and that was just an unforgettable event to see state legislators all come together and have one goal in mind, and that is to limit the federal government. And at that point, we knew Washington needs to be scared of these people because once they get together, they have the one goal in mind. We are, and speaking of the summit, we are going to be live streaming that, and we will, of course, have videos, because I know it's just going to be so empowering and inspiring.
Yep. How many? Do you know how many people have signed up to attend that?
It's about we're maxed out right now at about 350 to 400, somewhere around there. Wow. I don't think we have any spots left. Yeah.
Is it going to be in the same facility, the same place that the simulation took place?
Yes, we are going back to the birthplace of liberty.
Is the gentleman that during the simulation, I watched, of course, all the broadcast around that event, and I was just blown away by the character actor that portrayed James Madison.
Oh, yeah. He will be there. Yeah.
Is he going to be there again?
As well as George Washington, and we will hear also the Patrick Henry will give me liberty or give me death speech. So we're going to have lots of liberty-minded atmosphere as well. We have historic patriots and modern day patriots too. And I'm so excited about meeting, I don't know if we have every state represented, but we have most of them represented, and to meet all these Americans from all over the country who are working on the same thing that we are is really exciting.
I was just so impressed by that gentleman. I'll tell you, folks, you really, if you've never seen one of these character actors like this, they literally make you believe that they're the actual person. They're so good at that. So
yeah, they are.
This wasn't planned for us to talk about this tonight, but anyway, I thought it was very interesting. So, well, Diane, we're out of time for this segment. I want to thank you very much for coming on, and you've certainly been a major part in the development of the grassroots, not only across the state, but specifically, mainly here in Indiana. So I want to thank you for everything that you've done.
Oh, thank you, Dale. It's all been just a labor of love.
Of course, sure it is. All right, thank you, Diane.
Bye, Dale. Thank you.
All right, well, let's get now into the second segment that I like to talk about. And in order to do that, I'm going to bring up my PowerPoint, and hopefully we can get this uh, uh, situated so that you can see the PowerPoint, see it well on your screen. There we go. Okay. All right. First of all, I want to share with you some resources that we have available to us here in Indiana. Number one resource is our website, conventionofstates.com. Now, this is a national website that everyone in Convention of States uses, and you'll hear us make reference to this website frequently. But conventionofstates.com. If you're new to the movement, if you want to get involved in Convention of States here in Indiana, go to this website, conventionofstates.com, sign the petition, open your account, and you're in. So we'll take it from there. All right. Now, embedded in this national website is our state website page, which is conventionofstates.com/Indiana. That's a little more, obviously, a more focused look at the state of Indiana. Social media, we're on all the important platforms. Facebook, Convention of States Indiana. As a matter of fact, our broadcast this evening is coming to you through our state Facebook page, Convention of States Indiana. YouTube channel, COS Indiana. Now, the YouTube channel is very much an educational resource for our leadership as well as anyone else interested. We have narrated PowerPoint presentations on there. We have recordings of these broadcasts. And we also have links to a podcast that our legislative liaison, Paul Phillips, also a regular on this broadcast, but Paul does a podcast, The Free to Be Free, and they're excellent, excellent podcasts. So we have links to all of Paul's podcasts also on the YouTube channel. Twitter, hashtag COS Indiana, Instagram, Convention of States Indiana. We're on LinkedIn, and we're looking at expanding to other platforms as well. So if you want to look for us, we're probably pretty easy to find. Now, just give you some quick numbers here. Convention of States here in Indiana. In 2018, we surpassed 30,000 supporters. Been growing tremendously at about a 40% growth rate. So in 2019, we're looking to hit 40,000. We're on track to do that right now. We're at about 35,000. Of those, we have about 2,900 volunteers, about 40 people in leadership positions. Now, if you have any inclination to get more involved in Convention of States, I encourage you, here's this website again, I encourage you, please go to conventionofstates.com, click on the menu selection, Take Action, and scroll down and look at the different positions that we have available. They're all volunteer positions. If one is of interest to you, open it up, read about it. If you're very interested in it, go ahead and make application. You're not obligated in any way. But what that does is then your name will pop up on a report that I see and one or two others see. One of us then will be in contact with you to further discuss your interest in that position. So we always need new leaders and more leaders. So please go to the website and check us out. All right, let's get now into the basics of Convention of States. And the three tenets: the problem, the solution, and the plan. The problem. Basically, in one sentence, our government's out of control and will not relinquish power. Our government will not address certain basic structural issues. And we're not blaming any one political party. Both parties have contributed to this situation, been going on for decades. It's just simply a matter that our elected officials lack the will and the courage to address these basic issues. Now, we've broken this down into 3 abuses that we think occur by the federal government. And the very first one is a hot one, and that's our national debt. If you've paid any attention to the news here lately, you know our national debt is over 22 trillion, maybe to 23 by now. And a new spending plan is in the works, and it appears that both parties support this spending plan, and it's going to do nothing but increase our deficit, which is going to increase our national debt. So this, unfortunately, this particular abuse still is not being addressed by our federal government. And the second abuse has to do with the regulatory crisis. I know that there have been, in the current administration, there have been some regulations eliminated, but much more needs to be done. The administrative state is considered the 4th branch of government now, and we need to rein in the control that they have over our country. And not only in the number of regulations that have been created, but the process by which those regulations are created. So that's the second abuse that we've identified. The third abuse has to do with state sovereignty. When our country was founded, there was a concept in place called dual federalism, where the federal government and the states were going to share power. Well, that has all tilted in favor of the federal government. Yes, power, money, but we also think the career politician has had a role in this. So that's the third abuse that we have identified by the federal government. What's the solution? This is what we're all about. The solution, we believe, is an Article 5 Convention of States for the purpose of proposing amendments to the Constitution that will address the abuses that we just identified. Now, Article 5 in our Constitution describes 2 methods to propose amendments to the Constitution. Now, we're not making this up. This is literally in Article 5 of the Constitution. 2 methods are proposed. Let's talk about those very briefly here. The first method is where 2/3 of Congress propose an amendment or amendments to the Constitution, and then those amendments are then sent to the states for ratification. And it requires 3/4 of the state legislatures, or 38 states, to ratify any amendment or amendments before they can become amendments to the Constitution. Now, the second method described in Article 5 is where 2/3 of the state legislatures apply to hold a convention of states for the purpose of proposing amendments to the Constitution. Any proposed amendments that come out of that convention would then have to go through the same ratification process as in method 1. 3/4 of the states, or 38 states, would have to ratify any proposed amendments. So that's what we want to see happen. Well, what's our plan? Our plan is in 2 parts. The first is the application strategy. As we mentioned, it takes 34 states, 2/3 of the state legislatures, to make application to hold the convention. Well, Convention of States has literally designed the application, also referred to as a resolution, but has designed this application that all the states should use. It's important because all the applications have to be the same. It's called aggregation. So all the applications from at least 34 states have to be the same. And our application is designed in the subject matter, which determines the agenda of the convention, But in the subject matter, the application identifies fiscal restraints, limiting the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and term limits. Those are the three areas that we want to see amendments proposed to address the abuses that we've identified. The second part of our plan is mobilizing the grassroots. You heard Diane talk about the development of the grassroots in our country, across our country, as well as here in Indiana. And it's mobilizing citizens and our state legislators to bring about this convention that we're trying to offer as the solution to these problems. Now, as Diane said, across our country, we're nearly to 4 million followers. We have over 30,000 here in the state of Indiana. We're now in all 50 states. So I might mention that 15 states have passed the resolution. Indiana is one of those states. We were the 6th state to pass the resolution. So we're well on our way to reaching the number of 34. And we would love to have your commitment and your involvement if you are at all interested in getting involved in Convention of States here in Indiana. All right, let me bring you back to the broadcast. And I want to recognize any of the individuals that are following us this evening. Linda, Zach. Linda, thank you for joining us this evening. Glad to see you with us. And please come back again. Jennifer Spencer. Jennifer, thank you for joining us this evening. Glad to have you with us. Who else do we have here? William Curtis. William, thank you very much for being with us. William, you got a long comment here. And unfortunately, I can't post that. It's too long. So next time, please make it shorter, and we'll certainly try to get that on. So see if we have anybody else. I think that's pretty much it. So I want to thank you all for joining the broadcast this evening. Now, before we close out, our next broadcast will be on next Monday evening, August 5th. Boy, this year's flying by, isn't it? Already we're into August. But next Monday evening, 7 p.m., we're going to have one of our new district captains join us for a discussion on term limits. And our district captain is Melba Kaiser. She's in Region 5. And Melba is a great district captain, and she wants to come on, and we're going to talk about term limits. It's always a very, very interesting topic. So please, hope you can join us for that conversation. And let me close out here with my favorite quote. And this comes from one of our founders here in Convention of States, Mark Meckler. And Mark has always said that, you know, there's a fundamental question facing our country. And that question is not, what should we do? The question is, who will decide? And I think that is a very, very important question, because the question facing us is a two-word question. Very simply, who decides? And you can imagine here in Convention of States, we believe in we the people should have a bigger say in who decides. So I want to say thank you once again for joining us this evening. It's always a pleasure coming to you every Monday evening. And please join us next Monday evening, August 5th, 7 p.m. Good night, everyone. Have a great evening.